millions of people living as hoes. Yeah, but maybe.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and I'm delighted to say that it is that time of the week where we have our second visit from the Porkmeister, Mr. Mike Parry. And very, very nice to see you, Mike. You're looking very dapper. Have you been out somewhere?
I haven't been out anywhere, Mike, that involves the sort of behaviour that you're going to suggest.
Or the behaviour we were just talking about with, visits to lap dancing clubs and all that sort of thing, which is very much frowned upon by
I've never been to a lap dancing club. I've never been to a strip club. I just wouldn't go to them.
You've never been to a lap dancing club?
I've never been to a lap dancing club, never been to a strip club. Well, I did go to a strip club once when I was 16, and that was when I was on a school visit down to London to play in a five-a-side tournament, and we skipped off to Soho that night because we were 16-year-olds in London for the first time, and we went to a strip club.
What about that night after we interviewed Will Farrell over in Soho, and you ended up going to watch a football match inside a place that looked very much like there was a lot of half-naked women in it?
That was a lap dancing club, but I didn't go into the lap dancing area. The point was there was a very important football match on that night, and I walked past and I saw a screen shimmering, so I went in and I said, look, fellas, and it was the doorman, it was the bouncers who had a television rigged up for the football. I said, can I watch it with you? Because there's nowhere else in Soho.
Right.
They said, fine, we'll get you a couple of drinks from the bar. I said, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to see naked women cavorting around a pole, please. It's against my principles. And so, yes, I was in a lap dancing club, but no, I was not availing myself of the facilities.
So when you said you'd never been in a lap dancing club, that wasn't technically correct.
You know what I mean. I've never paid to go and ogle women writhed around poles. I think that's belittling to women. And as I say, since I was 16, I haven't been in a strip club. And you're 16, you're in a strip club. You come from the north of England, you're in London. It's the thing you do, isn't it?
I don't know.
You do know, but you just don't admit it. And so there we are. But lap dancing clubs, strip clubs, they're not my prime concern at the moment. My prime concern is Portsmouth, the city of Portsmouth.
I know, because you've got a place down there. You claim it as your kind of second home, don't you? Even though you haven't really got any heritage as far as Portsmouth is concerned.
Well,
why are you so concerned about it?
Well, except for the fact that my father set off on D-Day to invade Europe, from those shores.
From Portsmouth?
From Lyon-Solent, which is just around the coast from Gosport, where I live. But yes, the main task force went from Portsmouth to Southampton. There was a bridgehead of 13 miles of coast, and my father was involved in it. So yes, I have got heritage. Thank you very much indeed.
And you're always waxing lyrical about the Ark Royal and all that, which is no longer a ship in the Navy, is it?
It used to park below my balcony. That's gone. Mr. Cameron, the Prime Minister, decided to get rid of that a couple of years ago. God knows why. I have no idea. He wants to go around invading countries all over the world and get rid of the aircraft carrier. And now although the naval dockyard will stay in terms of repairs and facilities for the diminishing number of Royal Navy ships we have, the actual building of them is no longer going to happen. It's an outrage, an absolute outrage. And the people of Portsmouth have already had to put up with the fact that their football club's been decimated by sheer incompetence over the past 10 years, right?
Is there some kind of a curse on Portsmouth?
Well, you wonder, don't you? Because, our heritage is based on being a maritime nation. The home of the Royal Navy is Portsmouth. The first Royal Naval ship, the Mary Rose, is actually recovered from the silt beneath Portsmouth Harbour, and it's now in a museum there. Henry VIII, the father of the Royal Navy, started the Royal Navy there, and yet it's all gone to hell, and I hate it.
Because we don't really need a Navy anymore, that's the point.
We do need a
Britain
Navy.
Is not in the position of policing the world anymore, and Cameron has worked all that out.
Hang on, Mike, don't be such an oaf. We're an island, and if we're an island, you need a Navy to protect your shores, more than you... We need a Navy more than Germany needs a Navy.
As everybody
Germany
knows,
hasn't got any coastline,
yeah, but the Spanish
you fool.
Armada's not going to be suddenly invading, is it? Or, people are not going to be coming here on ships from anywhere. The only ships you see coming in there now go to the Isle of Wight. They're ferries. That's the point. There's no need to have warships
That is one
anymore.
problem. That's one problem. When I first moved to Gosport, which is exactly opposite where the main berths for the Royal Navy ships are, there were 6 ships there every day. There was at least 1 aircraft carrier, sometimes 2. We haven't got any now.
But if they're just sitting there, then that's a good illustration of why they're not required anymore.
No,
What's the point of them sitting in Portsmouth Harbour?
Because in those days we had 50 surface ships, so having 6 in there was no great deal, and the rest had gone out. They were called Type 42s. Now most of the 42s are at the back of the harbour, rotting in a naval graveyard. They're going, they're literally being taken to pieces there. And the new T-45s, of which we're only getting 6 to replace nearly 18 ships which had been decommissioned, are there so rarely now you hardly ever see them.
Yeah, but the ships are still going to be built. They're just going to be built in Scotland rather than in Portsmouth, right? Because they're moving them.
We don't know they are going to be built
to Govan, where the shipyards have been for centuries as well.
We don't know they are going to be built. All they're doing now is building 3 ships for the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, right? Which are not real Navy ships anyway. anyway. So we don't know if any more ships are going to be built. We just don't know. It's an outrage. When the shipping industry in this country went to hell, other countries like Japan and Germany specialised and started building cruise liners, which is one of the...
Well, that's what they should have done in Portsmouth.
Of course they should. Of course they should.
But they couldn't because it was too expensive. That's one of the reasons that people were building ships in the Far East and in Germany.
No, they couldn't because they wanted to, and they were told by the government, no, there's no facility to build cruise liners in Portsmouth because you've got to build military hardware and ships. BAE, British Aerospace, our main military supplier, needs the facilities there to build Royal Navy ships. Now, the government have pulled the rug. Exactly, pulled the rug from under. Well, it's too late.
So
now
what do you propose to do about
cruises.
it? I mean, I never knew really that you were the sort of the champion of shipyard workers or the champion of trade unions or anything like that.
Excuse me. First of all, I have lodged the local people. Secondly, as a working man, right? Definition of
But you're
working.
not a working man. A definition of a working man is a man who is, doing something, generally speaking, with his hands. You don't do anything with your hands.
Rubbish. You don't have to wear a boiler suit, right? Excuse me, and work on a production line in a car factory to be a working man.
What's your definition of it then? Just because you go to work, you're a working man?
Yes,
you're a property mogul. You're somebody that owns loads of stuff. You're an investor. Mike, you've been wealthy beyond belief of most working men.
Excuse me.
I wouldn't describe you as anything other than right wing.
Right. Okay. I went to the King's Hall, Chester. And when there was a general election there once, and I was about 16, I stood as the head of what I was, which was the Che Guevara party, actually.
Che Guevara party?
No, I did. Che Guevara. To me, Che Guevara was a hero. In my English A-level classes, you had to study a particular niche of books, right? You know, some guys studied
So
things.
you've read all Che Guevara's works, have you?
Well, what I did was, I read all the works. I read Mein Kampf, which was Hitler's...
that wasn't by Che Guevara.
No, that was by Hitler. I read Che Guevara's writings. I read the writings
What were they called?
Well, they're called Che Guevara, the story.
What, Che Guevara, the story?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Right. Well, in 12 parts?
Well, whatever. I mean, did you know that he was a doctor, fully qualified doctor?
I did know that,
Do you know he suffered from asthma? Do you know that he
I saw the movie, The Motorcycle Diaries. Did you see that movie?
No, I've never seen that, no.
It's about Che Guevara.
Fiction, man. You've got to get down to the basics. Did you know that he was an international class rugby player? And
that was all in the film as well.
Oh, was it, really?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the film. I just dealt with the facts.
He wrote a lot of diaries. That's why it was called The Motorcycle Diaries.
Oh, I see, right.
So what else did you read, then, at this formative stage of your political education?
I tried to broaden my political mind, but what I'm saying is, you just call me right-wing. No, I'm not. That's ridiculous. You said I'm wealthy. No, I'm not. All I've tried to do is earn a living all my life. And I think Che Guevara had some good principles. Actually, one of the reasons why was because all the young ladies of the day were very impressed by this exotic, picture of Che Guevara's with
So
his
that
beret.
was why. Did you have a badge? Or did you have a Che Guevara shirt?
No, we had a beret. We had a Che Guevara beret.
You wore a beret?
Or a beret, yeah.
That is embarrassing.
I think I got a picture of it, actually, somewhere. But I'm not going to give it to you because you post it on Twitter or something. But
I would like to see some evidence that you were actually a fan of Che Guevara.
Well,
I don't believe you.
I'm not saying I was a fan, but I mean, I decided that I'd campaign on the Che Guevara ticket.
And how'd you get on?
Didn't get a lot of votes, to be honest, because a lot of people didn't understand. They didn't understand political philosophy, And all the rich kids wanted it to be like commies and all that kind of stuff, And it was difficult to.
Did you campaign in the beret?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I stood on a soapbox actually in the school grounds.
Well, if there is a picture of that, I definitely have to see.
Yeah,
it.
well, whether you'll get to see it or not, I don't know. But I mean, talking about berets, old AVB, he should be wearing a beret, shouldn't he?
He would probably look quite good in a beret. Actually.
Yeah,
better than you, I would imagine.
He might do, but I have to say, I'm getting increasingly frustrated by his bizarre behaviour.
Well, you told us when you were here on Monday night that you thought you should get a touchline ban because of his decision over Hugo Lloris.
I do.
And then after that, he's even more likely, he's been defending it ever since then. He's been saying he did nothing wrong.
He's been defending it ever since then. He said he didn't do anything wrong. He put Lloris back on. But, of course, as you pointed out to me earlier, he dropped him from tonight's game. Yeah. So, last night's game, as it is. So, he must have had some thoughts about whether it was a good idea to play him again. But now, he's going public and saying that Lukaku, the player who collided with his goalkeeper Lloris, now owes Lloris an apology.
He said it's all his fault for hitting him.
He said, why don't you ring him up and apologise? Well, hang on. If he wasn't injured and he wasn't damaged, what is there to apologise for anyway? The man's got it all over the place. And I'm delighted to see that Roberto Martinez, the Everton manager, has said, well, you want an apology from my player Lukaku, I want an apology from your player for giving the elbow to Phil Jagielka in the face. I think it was Dawson, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I think it was no, was it Dawson?
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't Dawson.
No,
it was the centre forward, wasn't it?
It was.
Whose name I've forgotten already.
It was. Yeah, it was it Defoe?
Soldado.
Soldado. Thank you very much indeed. Well done. You're on
Not very
on
much
form
said
tonight.
about that. There wasn't very much said about
No,
that.
there wasn't much said about it at all. And, Phil Jagiel just took it in the face. But I think Mr. Martineau was pointing out the touch of inconsistency in the AVB argument, to say the least.
Yes, I think there is. Now, we're going to talk about Crystal Palace in a little while. Because,
we're going there.
We are going
Saturday.
there this weekend.
They're looking forward to seeing us.
It's been a while since you and I have attended a football match together, so I've got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
I want you to be very honest with me in your answers.
Okay.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm with Mike Porky Parry. I'm Mike Graham. Back after this. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and I'm with Mr. Porky Parry. He's here for the second time this week, as he is all the time now. And of course, if you want to listen to it all again, we're on iTunes. The podcast is called The Two Mics, and you can go there and download it. And we're very, very happy about all of that. Mike, we're going to Crystal Palace tomorrow. You've already told me I need to wear a tie. You've already told me that I need to wear a suit. I'm all set up for that.
Yeah,
good. We're going to meet quite early. We're going down for a whole kind of day of it. Everton are no doubt not going to have too much trouble dealing with Crystal Palace. But I've been looking up some of the things about your relationship with Crystal Palace over the years, and you've mentioned it before that the last time you were down there when Simon Jordan was the owner, there was a bit of a problem. And you told me that
you
told me that it wasn't particularly a big deal.
No, it wasn't a big deal.
I've actually found an interview that he gave to a magazine, FHM, about various aspects of his life.
Oh, yeah,
and he talks about this as one of the kind of major things that was a problem while he was the owner of Crystal Palace.
Oh, what did he say then? I've not seen this.
He was asked about Alan Brazil's reference in his book, where he says that it was referred to the Crystal Palace boardroom was referred to as like a scene from Goodfellas.
Well, that's the book I wrote for Al. Yeah.
Well, they call it Alan Brazil's recent biography in this thing.
No, that was the book I wrote for Al.
Okay, so you wrote the book. Anyway, he basically says, let me tell you what happened. He says the night before Palace's playoff final, Alan Brazil and his fat TalkSport co-presenter Mike Parry hosted a dinner at the club, a sporting dinner. I wasn't even there, but Parry starts singing about how I should go back to selling phones. People wanted to kill them. So my brother's security rushed them to the safety of our boardroom. Understandably, my brother was very angry and said, how dare you insult us in our own house? And Brazil simply replied, son, get me a beer. And that made my brother mad. Brazil claims my men chucked him out. Rubbish, they saved him from basically getting beaten up. So
a load of rubbish.
Hopefully, that was quite a few years ago, I know. But
listen, I'll tell you exactly what happened. That was Simon Jordan's end-of-season ball. He didn't even have the courtesy to go and see the fans. Right. He lived in Spain at the time. Al and I went there, entertained the fans royally. They loved us to bits. I sung a little song which went, when Simon's on his own, he makes love to telephones. He's as eager as a beaver when he's with a receiver. And, it was funny.
It didn't go down very well then.
Everybody's laughing their heads off, but the only people who didn't like it were the security guys who turned up and, the clenched fists and all that kind of stuff. And we just took the mickey out of them. And one of them, believe it or not, said, look, I'm really sorry about this, fellas. It's Simon's brother. I'll give you a lift home. And he gave us a lift home back into London.
I just want to establish that you're not going to start bursting into song or anything. No. While I'm there in your company.
No, not at all. This is Mr. Parrish runs it now, runs it very efficiently, very well. I will be an honoured guest there, and I will expect you to behave in the manner that befits representatives of this mighty station.
I'm always very well behaved. I've never, ever been in any kind of trouble, despite travelling to various locations with you. It's always you that ends up getting into trouble.
Well, you don't get into these locations unless you're with me in the first place.
Now, one of the things I'm sure people will be talking about when we're at the football tomorrow is AP McCoy, because what a fantastic achievement. 4,000 races. It wasn't that long ago that people were saying, well, it doesn't seem all that clear how soon this is going to happen, but he's absolutely prodigious, isn't he? He's won race after race after race for years and years. He's nearly 40 years of age. I don't know if you heard Rupert Bell on the show a bit earlier. Just possibly the biggest achievement in any sport, really.
Well, I'm not sure about this. I mean, look, I know people are going to say, how could you possibly, cast any aspersions on this man's greatness? But, I mean, for instance, I was the first one to raise the fact that old Steve, what's his name, the Olympic rower, 5 gold
Sir
medals.
Steve
Redgrave. Sir Steve Redgrave. Right. Now, I was the first one to raise the fact that I said, if I'd, sat in a boat on the River Thames ever since I was 16 and rowed up and down, I would have won gold medals in rowing. Without
Your
shadow
legs
of a doubt.
not long enough. You have to have quite long legs to row.
No. Shadow of a doubt, I could have done it. The point is, that's all he ever did. Now, he had a wife who was a doctor, so, she earned a respectable salary, which kept the family going, and obviously he got grants and things to do it, but he basically dedicated the whole of his life to rowing.
But that's something that should be admired, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. To do that, he's a father and all that kind of stuff, and of course he won gold medals. But I think if I'd have been allowed to dedicate my life to 20 years rowing up and down a river, I would have become a gold medalist without a shadow of a doubt. Now, with AP, you see, he's not the greatest jump jockey ever. He's only rated as the third best jockey ever.
And that's decided by what, though? Decided by not the number of wins?
Well, it's the number of prestigious wins, of prestigious races. I mean, obviously, he's got the record of 4,000. Richard Johnson, as you pointed out earlier, 2,560.
It's a long way behind, isn't it?
Well, it's a long way behind, but I mean, Richard Johnson hasn't ridden for as many years and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing I was going to say is, he's only the third most successful jockey ever at Cheltenham. Cheltenham is the crucible of, as you know, national hunt racing, and so that's where you make your mark. He's only won 2 Gold Cups at Cheltenham, same as Ruby Walsh, but Ruby Walsh has won 2 nationals, 2 AP's won. And AP only won his first national a year ago, didn't he?
After 15 attempts, yeah. He's also won the champion hurdle, but I mean,
Well, yeah, of course he has. He's won all those. But what I'm saying is...
But it seems very churlish, does it not, to pick on
I know it'll look like that.
Thing that almost everyone believes is a great achievement, a magnificent achievement.
I know it will look like that, but the point I'm making is, Mike, it's longevity, which has given him this record. I mean, for instance...
But that's also worthy of praise, isn't it? Because look at all these things that have happened to him. He's got these are his injuries: chipped teeth, broken cheekbones, broken collarbones, broken shoulder blades, punctured lungs, broken middle vertebrae.
You look as though you've had a few of those.
Broken ribs, broken wrist, broken lower vertebrae, broken thumb. Shall I go on? Broken leg, broken ankle.
Yeah, but it's longevity. What I'm saying is, look, I'm going to throw another spanner in the works here. I mean, was Sir Stanley Matthews really the greatest footballer ever and all that?
I don't know. I'm not old enough to remember Stanley Matthews.
Well, neither am I. But, I mean, he didn't retire till he was 50, right? And he tried for Stoke. But, again, OK, so he was the wing wizard, the master of the dribble and all that. But he won 1 FA Cup. In 1953, when it was the twilight of his career, and he'd missed out on.
Yeah, but that
Cups
doesn't mean that just because you don't play for a team that wins everything, that you're not a great footballer.
No, what I'm saying is, if you go on and on and on forever, like Steve Redgrave, like AP McCoy, like Sir Stanley Matthews, people then seem to say, "Oh, the greatest ever," because he was around longer.
Well, it's not just because he's around longer; it's because he's been winning more races than everybody else.
I know he has.
Even if you knock 1,000 off, he's still leading.
I'm not knocking
Richard
that,
Johnson by
but
500.
let me make this point. A lot of those races were won at really tiny little courses, and like the Figure of 8 course down in Sussex. Can't remember what it's called now. I like going there.
The one down near Gatwick?
No,
Lingfield.
Beyond no, not Lingfield. Lingfield's a major course. This is a little one. Can't remember what it's called, but I've been there a few times. It's like a meeting of a load of local farmers. Put a track up and all that kind of stuff.
How many did he win there then?
Well, I've no idea, have
I?
So
you're making it up then?
No, I'm not making it up. He goes to all the jump tracks. For instance...
Well, Toaster's not a tiny place, is it?
Toaster is a tiny place. I was about to say his moment of triumph came at Toaster, right? There weren't a lot of people there. I mean, obviously all the people surrounding him were there because this is where he could have made his record, and the people he won in the colours of... the 2 great racing magnates.
Yeah,
Mr.
McManus bought a round of drinks for everybody who was there. Did you see that?
Oh, that's very nice. It's very kind of the sort of thing I would do. I'm out wildly generous like that as well, foolishly, but there you are. And what I was going to say is that, this is because he would take 7 or 8 rides a day. He'd fly by helicopter from one little course to another little course.
Isn't it? It's not something that you should say is a bad thing.
But in a sense, what I'm saying is his greatness is because of longevity and a willingness to travel further rather than...
And sacrifice and absolute and utter dedication to his craft.
But in flat racing, Lester Piggott is eminently a greater champion because of the number of derbies he won, which is the benchmark for flat racing, and the number of classic races he won, and the fact that he started doing it from the age of 16, and the fact that nobody's ever beaten him.
So he did it for a long time as well?
Well, yeah, but not that long, because when he came back, he didn't win anything. When he retired and then came back, he didn't win anything. So all I'm saying is, if you take the major race in a jump jockey's life, it's the Grand National. AP's won 1, right? Lester Piggott won... Did he win 9 derbies? I think he won 9.
Yeah, I think he did.
Just from the back of my mind. I mean, so I'm just saying that, I think... He's a great guy, by the way.
I think
I've
you're
done
putting
shows
a bit
with
of a
him.
downer on the whole story.
No,
I
I've
think
done
it's
shows with
ridiculous.
him. I think he's a lovely man, great guy, and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I'm being very brave here because I will get approbation from the racing community and most of the sporting community saying, you miserable git, how could you possibly question?
Because the timing of these things is sometimes
Yeah,
important.
of course it is.
And, you know,
Of course it is.
it's not long enough between the amazing achievement that he's made for you to start questioning it and saying, of course, he's not really the great rider everybody says he is.
I'm not questioning it. I'm just saying, look at the facts. And if you look at the facts, and let's face it, Mike, I'm factual. I do not deal in daydreams, airy,
You don't
fairy
normally
theories.
get very many facts right.
Oh, I think I do.
I don't think so.
I think I do.
Every time you mention a fact, we usually find out it's actually not right.
No. I don't think that's.
And you don't know that much about
case.
racing anyway. It's not your sport, is it?
What do you mean it's not my sport?
Racing is not really your sport.
Oh, really?
You might have gone to a lot of race meetings,
really?
and that doesn't mean you know much about it, though.
Well, you know nothing about racing.
I don't know very much
you know
about racing.
absolutely nothing about racing.
But I do
How come
remember-
I've been invited to Cheltenham next week then to join the boys from?
I'm not able to travel
from Paddy Power
very far from
to
here.
help them.
I'm not able to travel very far from here. But we went racing once to Windsor for a night race. Do you remember? And you didn't
I think
make...
that was at my invitation.
It was
wasn't
at your invitation.
Thank you.
I won something in every single race.
Doesn't get in anywhere. You don't get anywhere unless you're with me.
Do you remember that I won something in every single race? I
No,
ended up
of
making
course I
about
don't.
£500.
Of course I don't remember
You
that.
got very upset about it.
Rubbish.
You don't remember that?
No, of course I don't remember. I don't think it ever happened. What are you talking about?
It did happen.
You're mad.
I'll find the betting slips.
The last time I went to Windsor was this year. Went with Al. I won £650 in the last race.
Well, very good.
In
That
the
makes
last
up for all
race
the
alone.
stuff you lost in the meeting that you and I
Oh,
went
really?
to. Yes. Now, let's talk about another story that
go
has
on.
piqued my interest. It's about the new restaurant policy over in Paris. Now,
yes.
you've been over to Paris one or two times in the past, and you better not go to this restaurant because the problem that you will have is that they've started seating ugly customers in the corners. They're basically saying that they only want beautiful people sitting anywhere near the front of the restaurant so that people will want to come in. And if you're too ugly, they basically don't want you anywhere near the place.
So you've been sitting in the back of a lot of restaurants, have you, recently?
I haven't
Mike,
sat in the back of restaurants, actually. This is a place which is known in Paris as a very, very expensive part of the world.
So you wouldn't go there,
and it's
then?
called Le Canard Enchaîné. Oh, sorry, that's an investigative magazine. This is the staff at Le Georges in the Pompidou Centre, where I have been, and Café Marley, are saying that attractive guests are given the best seats. They don't admit to it. But that's what
I think
they're
that's a good
actually
policy.
doing. Why do you think it's good policy?
It's a good policy because I think if you spend a lot of money and time on your business, you want it to be visited by, the beautiful people, if you see what I mean. I don't see anything wrong with that whatsoever. I wouldn't have any objection to a restaurateur banning people. I'm not going to be funny, Mike, of your shape and all that kind of stuff, but some of the most obese people that we see on earth these days, are people who are wandering around London and Paris and Rome and all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't let obese people in. And by the way, I know a lot about restaurants in Paris. I spent a lot of time in Paris, particularly when I was the TalkSport correspondent for the Rugby World Cup in 2007.
I don't know how that happened. Nobody can
how come I was the
understand
official
how
correspondent then for TalkSport?
Well, they must have wanted you there for other reasons.
The restaurant I love on the Champs-Élysées, it's my favourite.
What?
And on the Champs-Élysées.
Champs-Élysées?
Yeah,
Okay.
is Le Fouquet. Le Foucault. No, seriously.
Don't keep trying it. You'll get it horrendously wrong.
No, I call it Le Fouquet, and I was introduced to it by Andy Townsend, right, who's been using it for years when he's been there on football missions and that kind of stuff. But
what sort of restaurant is it? What sort of cuisine?
It's a French restaurant.
It's a French restaurant?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I mean, I know that sounds silly because obviously it's in France, but it serves French food.
Right.
So beautiful steaks and all this kind of stuff, right?
Well, I've been in your company when you've been asked to leave restaurants and you've been asked to move the table
rubbish.
because you've been upsetting too many
Rubbish.
people. That's part of the problem.
What utter rubbish.
Unbelievable.
Where?
Absolutely
Go
ridiculous.
on, give me an example.
Well,
of
it happened one night in Covent Garden, I seem to remember a few years ago, when we went for a curry with another colleague from the Express.
Nonsense.
And you were so loud and obnoxious that people were
Me?
actually
Loud
asking.
and obnoxious?
People first started moving away from the table.
Honestly, Mike, you paint this picture of me to an absolutely rigid blueprint, don't you? All the time.
Well, it's just the
Utter
truth.
nonsense.
As you say, it's just the truth.
Utter
That's what it's all
nonsense.
about. Unbelievable. Now, what about bus drivers needed? Because that's another story that
Do you know, I can't believe this. I can't believe this because, you know what? I read the Evening Standard every night, and I'm sure you do as well. Aren't there 5 million people in this country unemployed?
There are.
And why then are they advertising all the time for bus drivers?
Everywhere you go, you see adverts on the back of buses for bus drivers.
I was about to say, go to any city in this country, how do they know they're going to need a new bus driver tomorrow? But every bus in this country has, can you drive this vehicle? Do you want a job as a bus driver? Ring this number. So we've got a constant shortage of bus drivers. Why is that?
Probably because it's not a job that many people want to do, because it's quite a dangerous job for a start. You have to deal with all sorts of people that don't want to pay, all sorts of people that are
I think it's a great job.
Going to be problematic late at night, that kind of thing.
I think it's a great job being a bus driver. I think, you know, you're doing a public service, you're your own man, you're locked in that little cubicle, you know, you've got to steer this big vehicle from A to B.
£475 a week, it says here.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. Is that tempting for you?
Well, yeah, you've got to be...
Times are tough.
You've got to put life into perspective and you've got to be realistic about how you do it. But, I mean, we all need buses, don't we? We all need buses. You use a bus.
I travel on buses all the time.
Yeah,
I don't think you do, though.
I do.
Really?
I do, yeah.
Should we go by bus to Crystal Palace, then?
No, we're going by train.
Oh, okay.
And taxi. It's the quickest way to get there. From Victoria Station to East Croydon, jump out at East Croydon, into a cab, bang, 10 minutes later we're at Sellers Park. If you go by train and bus, it is a long route. Crystal Palace is renowned as being the hardest Premiership ground to get to.
It's a difficult place to get to.
Oh, it's very difficult to get to. And when teams are coming from the north, it's the one ground they always get lost trying to find. The coach driver always gets lost. Even with a sat-nav, they get lost because it's in a maze of little back streets.
That's why I was worried about finding
London.
you there, but we're going to go together, are we?
Oh,
That's
of course,
the plan.
of course. You know, we're both guests of Mr. Parish and of Crystal Palace Football Club. I don't mind walking through the door with you on this occasion.
Very, very kind of you. Mr. Mike Parry and I, of course, will be back on a Monday night, and we'll hear all about our trip
to Crystal Palace. Is this going to be on iTunes?
Then. This will be on iTunes. It will be available later on in, I guess, about less than 12 hours from now. Just look up the two mics on iTunes. Mr. Parry, thank you very much indeed. I shall see you at Crystal Palace tomorrow.
Great to see you.